Moscow faced down the world on Friday by vetoing a United Nations Security Council resolution deploring the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The veto was a certainty, but China decided to abstain along with India and the United Arab Emirates, a move viewed as a rejection of Putin's diplomacy.
Let us never forget that this is a war of choice, Russia's choice. Russia chose to invade its neighbor.
And the UN chief rejected in very clear terms Russia's aggression towards Ukraine.
The United Nations was born out of war to end war. Today, that objective was not achieved. But we must never give up. We must give peace another chance. Soldiers need to return to their barracks. Leaders need to turn to the paths of dialogue and peace.
In a gesture of outright rejection of Russia's actions, most Security Council members held up a Ukrainian flag against the backdrop of a tapestry of Picasso's Guernica, considered one of the most powerful anti-war paintings in history.
In southern Poland, a train arrives from Odessa with exhausted passengers. Refugees have been crossing into the European Union in their tens of thousands. More than 38,000 have now arrived in the country, mostly by road. They'd feared the Russian military would attack Odessa, where Ukraine's main seaport lies.
I had a message from my friends. They woke me up with a phone call, informing me that there was the first sign of military actions against Ukraine. And so we had like a last-ditch emergency plan just to meet on the railway station and see where it can take us. We were not organized seriously.
After fleeing so quickly, many are considering what to do next. At the border town of Medyka, one man says he'll head for Wrocław, a big city further inside Poland.
We leave our two dogs with a friend there because we were not in time to make them a passports or a permissions or I don't know what. So we now thinking about what to do next and going to probably Wrocław to take a deep breath there and decide what to do.
Thousands have fled into Romania. Some came on foot, others by car or by ferry. Many have friends or relatives living here. And in a sign of solidarity, some Romanians met them to offer their help.
People in Russia have been holding demonstrations to voice their opposition to Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. In the capital Moscow, almost 1,000 people were detained by police on Thursday night, and an independent human rights media project said protests of varying sizes took place in 51 cities across the country, with police making at least 1,767 arrests. Those rallies included one in Russia's second largest city in St. Petersburg, where again police were harsh in their response, detaining at least 433 people. Some of the demonstrators had family or other ties in Ukraine. I don't want Russia to attack Ukraine, but someone would go there like this. I have grandparents there. What happened today is a shame. Many of us have relatives and friends from Ukraine, and this is a betrayal towards them. In Yekaterinburg too, police arrested around 40 people. Despite the fact that most Russians get their news from state-controlled media, it's clear that support for Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine is far from unanimous.
As the EU looks to prepare a new round of sanctions against Moscow, the latest set has left the bloc divided. The majority believe that the sanctions will slowly cripple the Russian economy, but some member states insist that they won't be painful enough to deter Putin from further aggression. Some EU countries, including Germany and Italy, worried about their business contracts, meant Europe has for now decided not to use the nuclear option, ending Russian access to the international payment system, SWIFT. But discussions are now underway over its possible inclusion.
If Russia is no longer able to actively participate in the international financial system, that has a major impact. It makes it very difficult to run financial institutions within Russia, and it cuts Russia off very effectively from outside finance. So I think this is a move which would have helped.
Also left out were oil and gas imports, meaning Moscow's main source of revenue still remains intact. It also means that banks can still fund oil and gas sales, and Putin can still fund the Russian military.
But over time, these sanctions will have impact. They won't halt what Russia is currently doing in Ukraine, but it does represent a fundamental shift in the European Union's attitude and approach to Russia from here on.
Financial sanctions are supposed to target 70% of the Russian banking sector. Export restrictions include a ban on semiconductors and Airbus spare parts, meaning that Russia's airlines will be starved over the medium term as their airplanes deteriorate. Taken all together, the sanctions intend a slow erosion of living standards, which EU leaders hope might fan popular discontent and threaten Putin's regime that's already faced sporadic protests. Christopher Pitchers, Euronews, Brussels.
To hear how the European Commission has been responding to the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine, we spoke to Frans Timmermans, the Executive Vice President of the European Commission.
Europe in the last 30 years has never been able to come up with a coherent and comprehensive strategy towards Russia. And the Russians have been playing around with that, making friends here and cherishing enemies there, just because they cannot dominate us. They're too weak for that. They try and disrupt us. That's what they've been doing for years. And as long as we accept that disruption, as long as European prime ministers go to Moscow in the middle of a crisis to just make a gas deal for themselves, as long as that happens, the Russians will be laughing and will be trying to play off one European against the other.
And do you think Europe, the EU member states, are mindful of what you're saying there? I mean, what could they have done better in the last couple of years?
Well, I think too often we've thought that our values, because they're so self-evident, they would also be self-executing, and they're not, and they're being attacked. And it's a long-term project of Vladimir Putin. He's been doing this for decades. He's been financing, bankrolling the extreme right in Europe. He's been trying to influence the press. He's been doing everything to undermine our democracy and our way of life. And I hope that now, when everyone in Europe can see what this leads to, that nobody is naive anymore, that we will stop sort of explaining away his behavior, and we will know that we are being attacked at an ideological level, which is comparable to the Cold War, and that we need to defend ourselves. We're so much stronger.
And the Ukrainian President Zelensky has said his country has been left alone. What's your message to him?
Well, if I were in his position, I would feel exactly the same, and I have to really admire his courage. I breathlessly watched the speech he held in Russian to the Russian population, which I found one of the most impressive speeches I've ever seen.
Frans Timmermans, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us here on Euronews.
My pleasure.
Russia will no longer host this season's Champions League final, UEFA has announced. The finale of Europe's most prestigious football tournament will now be played at the Stade de France in Paris on May 28th. Before Russia invaded Ukraine, it was going to be held at the Gazprom Arena in St. Petersburg. UEFA has also announced that Russian and Ukrainian clubs and national teams competing in international competitions must play home matches at neutral venues until further notice. Spartak Moscow is the only Russian team remaining in European club competition.